Hello and welcome to this episode of the Parents in PR podcast, a mini-series within Sparks by PRCA. I'm Alex Stevens, founder of Parents in PR and business director at Reuben, Sinclair, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by two industry powerhouses, Adrian Ma and Tessa Curtis. Adrian is the founder and partner of Fanclub PR, a B Corp agency founded in 2011, which was crowned Independent Agency of the Year at this year's PR Moment Awards. Adrian is an advisor and mentor at BME PR Pros, which aims to make the PR industry more inclusive. He's also an active campaigner with Clean Creatives, a global movement of advertisers, PR professionals, and their clients cutting ties with fossil fuels. On top of all of this, Adrian is the dad of two girls aged 6 and 9, and he lives with them and his wife Amy in London. Tessa has over 25 years experience in senior roles at both agency and in-house teams and has just joined Fanclub as a director, leading their corporate and ESG practice, Humankind Comms. Prior to this, she ran her own agency and has held leadership roles at Weber Shandwick Worldwide and Grayling, and worked with clients including Coca-Cola, ClearPay, IBM, and Legal & General. Tessa is also the mother of two grown-up girls, the youngest of which is now at uni, and two stepchildren. Over her PR career, Tessa has variously been a single mum, stepmom, and parented a new blended family. Gosh, it's a mouthful getting all of that out because your careers and lives are so impressive. Adrian and Tessa, thank you both so much for joining me. Given we have both a mother and a father on the podcast today, I wanted to jump straight in and talk to you about your potentially differing experiences of parenting in the PR world. And I wonder if you think there are different pressures on working mums versus working dads, and how does that kind of impact their potential careers at work?
Yeah, I absolutely think there are different pressures on working mums versus working dads. I think from experience, I have seen, and I think it's probably a cultural thing, but there is more onus on the mum to take care of more of the family arrangements and the dad. The only instances where I've seen that change and be different is where separated parents are co-parenting 50-50, and then you do see dads take more of an equal role in terms of looking after the children. I'm very, very lucky myself because my wife also works within the business and she works part-time, so there's quite a lot of flexibility. But I got to say, I must confess that actually Amy does take on the bulk of organising the family activities and making sure people are where they need to be at certain times.
Often the case, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say, I think, unfortunately, too many senior roles in the PR industry are still held by men. And often in family situations, couples make decisions based on who earns most. And the bigger earner tends to get the, first dibs at having support on the home front. So in the end, this boils down to solving a bigger issue, which is how to have more women in senior roles and try and equalize pay. Because until it's fully equal, whenever those decisions are made about who should be the one who goes to work, who should be the one who supports, it's always going to be in favor of fathers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's also been my experience. I've seen it happen and I've been on the end of that. And I think I would just add that, I think things are changing a lot for the better. But certainly when my children were young, there were assumptions made about women not being able to do things because they were going to have to pick up the slack on the home front. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, it can be.
I was going to say it's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it, really, as to, they can't get the higher paid jobs because they're potentially overlooked. But then at the same time, that means that the balance internally at home is difficult. I guess on the flip side, though, there's also an extraordinary amount of pressure then on working dads in that sort of traditional model to kind of provide for their family, financially, emotionally, physically, while returning to work potentially after quite a short period of time on paternity leave quite often. Do you think there is enough support out there for working dads in that regard to make things more equal?
I think things are changing. I think, but that's been a fairly recent movement. I think there's been more of a move towards, for example, shared paternity leave, which I think is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I do think that there could be more. I think there's a whole bigger debate to be had around masculinity and the role that men play in society. I think as Tessa mentioned, in many cases, men are earning more than women, but it also that comes with a lot of ideas about what it means to be the breadwinner and the role that you play in the family as a result of that. And actually, I think there's an opportunity there for us to rewrite what that could be, and to look at, and to almost use the pandemic as a bit of a moment to reset, because the pandemic changed so much in parenting and it changed so much in our working lives. It's actually allowed us to have a bit more flexibility. And I think with the flexibility is an opportunity for men to take a greater role in anything from making sure the children are fed, to doing the drop-offs and the pickups at school and at clubs. And I think the more we can continue down this road and explore what it means to be a father in today's society versus what it meant before, when men had to be at the office at 9 to 5 and keep to all those corporate commitments as well as raise a family. I think there's a big opportunity for change there.
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of the good things that came out of COVID, I suppose. There's not many, but but perhaps that flexibility element, it has really impacted. Tessa, I'd like to talk to you about your experience of being a single working parent, because we've spoken a lot there about kind of the support that I suppose a mother and father unit can have together, and how splitting those responsibilities can make life easier and better for everyone. But it's often presumed that there's support at home in the form of a partner. But if that isn't the case, the juggle is compounded significantly, I would imagine. So how did you ensure you were able to kind of balance parenting and your career in that scenario as a single parent?
Well, it was incredibly difficult. So, full disclosure, my first husband wasn't particularly keen on me going back to work at all, which was one of the reasons that it didn't continue. And I think many couples do experience those kind of tensions, over, how their lives are going to rework. But so in our case, we split and I was literally organizing myself. And at that time, there wasn't the flexibility that we've been talking about with COVID, or with agencies offering work from home part of the week. So it was incredibly difficult. Either I had to have people lined up like nannies on standby almost, which is obviously very expensive. And not for everyone. It's incredibly stressful too. So I tried that for a while, but actually it was a big reason why I set up my own business, because I just thought, well, this is the only way I'm going to get that flexibility and work-life balance. But the quid pro quo was increased financial pressure. But I think things are a lot better now, and agencies like Fanclub are doing a fantastic job in offering better opportunities. So the choices aren't as hard, but it's inevitably a lot tougher if you're on your own.
Of course,
because it's all down to you.
Absolutely, it's a huge amount of pressure. Adrian, I guess on that point, like Tessa was saying, there are a lot of agencies that are doing really great things, and Fanclub being one of those. So has being a dad yourself influenced the support that you're able to offer working parents, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. What's been interesting is I think when I first set up the agency 12 years ago, people used to think that if you're setting up an agency, it's going to eat up every single hour of your day. And it's going to be a lot of pressure. And it is a lot of pressure. It does take a lot of time. But actually, we have designed the agency to allow us to live life outside of work. And for us, that means being super flexible. So like a lot of different agencies, we are hybrid. We come into the office 3 days a week, but it's not monitored at all.
Okay.
If people need to work from home or change their hours for kids, that's not a problem. If they need to work from home for a day to nurse a sick kid, that's not a problem. For me, I have hard stops on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so I can do pickups from clubs. I can shift my hours when there's a sharing assembly in primary school that I need to go to. Our colleague Paul, another partner in the business, he'll work from home some afternoons to make sure that his son isn't left alone, or he'll come in a little bit later so he can do school drop-offs as well. And then one area which can be quite difficult are the extended holidays. We do have a 2-week work from anywhere policy, which helps a little bit with those summer holiday periods. So people can go away, go to their parents and work from there for a couple of weeks as well. So that helps a little bit.
Yeah, massively. And I think it's also really important that, like you say, you and the rest of your senior team are kind of demonstrating that flexibility yourself and using that, because there is so much to be said about kind of having these policies in place. But if it's not being utilized by the senior team, I think the more junior team perhaps then look at you and feel like they can't utilize that themselves. So it's really great to hear that you guys are setting an example and not missing out on those kind of really important moments of your children's lives as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess there are sadly many agency leaders and kind of owners that aren't quite there yet, aren't quite as progressive, meaning that working parents, particularly women, leave the PR industry, which, Tessa, to your point, this contributes then to the kind of gender diversity issue, particularly at a more senior level, and then therefore the gender pay gap. How do you think we can attract and support those leavers back into the industry, particularly perhaps after extended career breaks?
Yeah, I read some research from women in PR, which backs up your point. And I think the thing I read was that whilst the industry is female dominated, with 67% of people working in the industry being female, at a senior level, only a third of boardroom positions are taken by women. Now, I think we can actually learn from other industries here, and the flexibility I mentioned before can really, really help. I have a friend who works at the insurance company Zurich, and she was telling me that Zurich was having a difficulty in terms of getting more women to apply for leadership roles at the business. So they went to a consultant and said, what can we do to get more women into leadership roles? The one change they made was, they said to Zurich, why don't you advertise all of the roles as being full-time or part-time? And so they put that in all of the roles. And what they found was that they managed to fill all of those roles, and 87% of the part-time people who secure part-time roles were women. So you can see that actually there's an opportunity and a need here for us to redesign what working life looks like. So it doesn't need to become all-encompassing for all of us to have a leadership role. You can be a fantastic leader and work part-time and work flexibly as well.
Yeah, which is super encouraging, and it's good to know that the kind of industry mindset is changing. Do you think the PR industry has its own kind of nuances when it comes to are there any kind of particular challenges that are specific to the PR industry, or perhaps any benefits that the PR industry has when it comes to kind of working parents?
I'd say not really. I think it's not as extreme as when you look at something like nursing, for example, or working in the medical industry, where or working in the police where you have to shift work. I think really it's quite similar to a lot of other office-based clerical work. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a lot of specific challenges. I think it can be more stressful than other careers, and I think studies have shown that. So one thing which differentiates it. I don't know if you'd have a different view on that, Tessa.
Well, I think I'd add that, we were talking about senior roles. So the more senior role you have, the more client facing you are. And actually, PR isn't really very different from other professional services firms, like, in this respect, like lawyers or accountants or whatever. In that, there is a need to look after clients and look after accounts. So if you have a client that's got a big priority and you're leading that client, then yes, there is a bit of a pressure to be able to respond and not to say, well, I'm not available again until 5 days' time. So I think there is a bit of a quid pro quo. So that if individuals and if mothers do want to progress into those higher positions, you can't be too precious about it, because senior roles simply do carry more responsibility, and that's just how things are. So yes, there's great scope to work more flexibly. And I think PR as an industry is particularly well suited to that. So, to be a part-time director, say, or to be working flexible hours, or to change the way you do the job. But it does come, I think, with a need for individuals to understand that if they want to climb higher up the tree, you have to, you can't necessarily always turn it off, and you have to deal with stuff.
I think that comes back to the point, you can't necessarily have it all or not all at the same time anyway. I guess there does have to be a little bit of give and take to a certain degree. I guess on that point, in terms of kind of final tips or kind of pieces of advice for parents in the PR industry that are perhaps struggling to see how they might progress in their careers while still being kind of present at home, do you guys have any kind of final words of wisdom to kind of offer anyone that might be sort of looking at you guys and aspiring to be in your position, but worried about the juggle that comes with being a working parent?
Well, can I start on that one?
Yeah.
I think that there's huge opportunity, and actually you can make things work however. And the good news, about being in this industry and being in it now is that there is no fixed blueprint for what good looks like. I mean, I've worked every which way. I've been full-time, I've been in-house, I've had my own industry agency. I'm now part of this one. And it's fantastic that you can come up with an almost endless number of different permutations to do interesting work. And it's still in flux. So I think, hold on to what you need and want to make work for you, start doing it, show that it works, and it'll probably happen. So there is a bit of a fake it till you make it about this, but it is happening, and the opportunities have never been greater. So you're actually becoming a mum at the perfect time.
That's good to know. Reassuring.
I'd agree completely as well. And I think don't be understand where your boundaries are and what you want to achieve, and don't be afraid to ask for what you want, even if it's different to what's happened in the past, because you will find a level of empathy and sympathy in leadership for parents, I hope. And you might be surprised by what they're willing to design around your life and the life of your family to keep you. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask.
I think communication is so key, isn't it? Between sort of both employers and employees. I think, like you say, it's there's a lot to be said about kind of just asking the question and having an open conversation about it. And love the point, Tessa, about sort of squiggly careers, and there's no right or wrong way of doing things. So both brilliant bits of advice. Adrian and Tessa, thank you so much for joining me and speaking to me today. Very inspiring and really great to get your perspective. Huge thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
No worries.